Welcome to the Meeting Explorers podcast. This is Fredrik Strang. In this episode, I'm excited to talk to renowned Brazilian doctor and explorer Karina Oliani as we discuss ziplining across erupting volcanoes, petting likely the biggest anaconda ever recorded on video, diving with sharks to raise awareness of the brutal slaughter of these apex predators, summiting the savage mountain K2 and searching for the mythological ancient underground city Akakor. Karina is specialized in emergency medicine and rescue in remote areas, and her appetite for adventures has led her to achieve one of the most varied and accomplished extreme medicine careers in the world, with over 50 major expeditions under her belt. Everything from cave diving, summiting Everest, special forces jungle medicine training with Brazil's elite units, to crossing the hottest desert in the world. Karina has pretty much done it all. In parallel to her medical career and adventurous spirit, she's a producer of audiovisual content and have already produced work for the global programs Fantástico and Esporte Espetacular. In Brazil, she has worked as a presenter and guide for the reality shows Celebrities Challenge and Extreme Missions on the Discovery Channel. Oliani is determined to preserve marine life and wants to shine a light on the cruel practice of shark finning. Oliani says, sharks are intelligent and can be trained, and they can take hours or even days to die after being finned. So shark finning is unacceptable. Recently, she was teamed up with archaeologists, geologists, and other experts as Facebook sponsored an expedition to the heart of the Amazon with the goal to track down the lost city of Akakor. Could this be the lost city of El Dorado? The legend that scientists, adventure seekers, and conquistadors have searched for over 500 years? Well, let's find out. So without further delay, I bring you Karina Oliani. Welcome, Karina. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Hi, Fredrik. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you very much. So before we jump into a variety of extreme sports stunts, combining your professional medical doctor career with your exploratory life, and also educating people about sharks and helping them to recover from vicious slaughter, please tell us a bit about yourself and your background.
So, Fredrik, I'm a medical doctor. I decided to go to medical school because I always felt very happy when I was able to help people when they needed the most. And I studied emergency medicine. So I work at the ER most of the times. But on parallel to that, I was always very fascinated with outdoor sports, especially those who can cause me some adrenaline rush. And I started when I was very young, at the age of 12, scuba diving. I took my certification in 1994. And then I also started bungee jumping, skydiving, whitewater rafting. You know, I live in Brazil, and Brazil is a big playground with all those nature sports. It's very good for that. And that took me into television. I never saw that coming, but I became Brazilian national champion for wakeboarding. And I got invited to go to some televisions to do some interviews by then. And they saw a big potential, and they asked me to become one of the hosts of a very big extreme sports TV show in Sport TV. And I started work on television in 2006. And since then, I had many opportunities to go into Discovery Channel, into cable TV, into open TV. I did a big series for Facebook Watch International. Now I'm doing a documentary for Japanese television. So I still work with that every now and then. And that takes me to many special places, including K2, where we met in July 2019 when I tried to climb K2.
Exactly. There's a question popping up in my mind. Holy crap! How are you able to combine all these interests of yours? How are you able to manage your time? You must have like 36 hours a day or something.
It's actually crazy. I don't consider I am actually able to manage my time so well. I'm always running here and there, and I'm always lacking time. But I think it's all a matter of priorities and establishing which are your priorities at that moment and sticking to that. Um, right now, I'm back home. I'm back to working with COVID because here in Brazil we having a big second wave of this pandemic. But I have plans to start doing my documentaries again and to do my expeditions again once everybody has the vaccine and we can go back to the new normal life.
Yeah. Before we indulge in your future escapes and expeditions, let's dive into the past. And you have a repertoire of many, many expeditions, which I'm really looking forward to ask you about. But here's a spoiler alert. Does Akakor exist?
It's a long story, and who am I to be able to say that for sure, But what I can say is that we were in the Amazon looking for it for a couple of weeks, and we didn't actually bump into Akakor, but we did bump into another much bigger and scarier thing. And yeah, we then ended up with a massive net of murders and serial killer and wow, crappy stories, like scary stories about everything that involved people trying to find Akakor. So I'm sure if people want to go online and have a look, it's on Facebook Watch. They're gonna love it.
It sounds like the Akakor is surrounded by some bad omen. Maybe it's not supposed to be found.
Well, maybe not. Maybe it's not the right time. I think everything has a right time to happen. Maybe it doesn't exist. It's lots of maybe, but I think human greed never ends up well, And around Akakor stories and all this thing that people has built around it's kind of cursed. It doesn't have a very good energy, I can tell you, because I was there and I noticed that.
So here's an honest question for you. How did a medical doctor become an adrenaline junkie? None pun intended.
Well, it was the other way around. I was already an adrenaline seeker, and then I decided to become a medical doctor, So this is the right order and not like a doctor became an adrenaline junkie. No.
So, was this life that you pictured yourself as a kid, or were you, by contrast, an overly shy person who rebelled and took command over your fears and trepidations?
Well, since my parents, they tell lots of stories that when I was young, uh, I used it to love like challenging myself or people to challenge me. Every time there was like competition or a big challenge, I would be there up for it, and or I want to go, I want to do, I want to compete. So I had this nature from a very young age. Uh, since I remember like being this little kid, and when I became a teenager, I was very competitive. I was always like looking for competitions and things to challenge myself. And this grew as I grew up. But after a while, I discovered mountaineering. And mountaineering is so amazing because I don't think you compete against anybody else. The competition in mountaineering is with yourself and your own physical and mental limits. And when I discovered mountaineering, altitude climbing, I was fascinated by it and I dropped all the other competitions and I started climbing more than anything.
If you could pick one favorite, I mean, you've been doing everything from flying, skydiving, diving with anacondas, sharks, ziplining over active volcanoes. Would mountaineering be the top pick?
I can't really answer that because the good thing in life is I don't have to choose between mountains, oceans, jungle. I can have everything, and this is the beauty of it, in my opinion, is I love to diversify. I love to have all these landscapes and different environments to adventure myself. I love to be in the mountains, but if I had to be in the mountains, like compulsory only in the mountains, maybe I didn't like that so much. So since a very young age, I started diving, and I love to be in the water. Doesn't matter if it's free diving or scuba diving or cave diving. And I can tell you, I'm a little bit more a water person than anything else. I think also because the proximity that I was born from the ocean and all the opportunities I had. My first job was as a dive master and then a scuba dive instructor ever. And after that, I became a doctor. So still today, I teach every once in a while with scuba dive for some special friends or special groups. But I think nowadays, if I had to talk from the past 5 years, yes, I've been doing lots of altitude climbing.
Some refer you to being probably the most extreme medical doctor in the world. You have practiced your proficiency from everywhere, from jagged peaks to dense jungles. And how is it like to be a doctor in some of the harshest conditions around the planet?
It's amazing. I love it because there's so much similarity between these two jobs. People say, "Oh, what it has to do? Like you work with documentaries for television, you do expeditions, and you work in the air room." Yeah, but all those knowledges, they kind of combine each other in a way that gives me lots of advantage. For example, I got invited to be the doctor of an American team of climbers on Everest for 4 months in 2010. And I was there working for them as a doctor. But I also did lots of footage that when I brought it back to Brazil, it triggered my expedition to Everest in 2013. And when I was there in 2013, filming the climbing of Everest from the south face, I was called to work as a doctor many times on rescues or for people who were sick, or I was already on Camp 3, Camp 4, and some people needed my help, and I had my medical kit with me because I always do. So, in many times I found myself doing one project, but actually working on another whole. Like I'm there as a climber or as a TV host, and I end up being the doctor and helping people, or the other way around too.
Isn't that bound for a blockbuster TV series? Karina, the medical doctor who ventures out on exploratory adventures and seeking out people in distress. What do you think about that? Is that a blockbuster?
I think that has lots of potential, and I actually have been trying to pull out something like this on Brazilian television. But television here in Brazil, it's kind of frustrating. Some things that we think it's extremely interesting doesn't go well here, as they prefer to see some other things. So who knows? Maybe when I can have more access to international television, we can pull out this dream and do something like this, because it would be a big project, and in my opinion, it would be amazing. Like I would watch every single episode.
Jumping back to diving, you said that your adventure spirit commenced with diving initially, and you've been diving professionally for over 20 years and also been an animal rights activist. And recently, you were a model on an underwater fashion shoot with sharks to highlight their plight. You were photographed underwater without breathing equipment and assisted by world-renowned divers Stuart Coe and Liz Parkinson. It was all shot at a shark sanctuary in Nassau in the Bahamas, and it aimed to highlight the threat of extinction of sharks faced globally. And you choose not to have protective barrier between you and the animals during the watery fashion shoot. The project had a serious conservation message and aimed to make the public aware of the threat that the animal now faces from extinction. So firstly, how did this important project emerge in the first place?
I was always in love with sharks, not only sharks, but all marine life in general. But I think sharks are very neglected animals in the way that they are considered like human assassins and murderers, and they are not. They are just like these amazing predators that are on the top of the food chain. But in the other hand, if they wanted, they could eliminate us, and nobody could ever swim at the beach without having some, like freedom or without being afraid of them. But in the end, they are not interested in us at all. They don't want to eat us, they don't want to kill us. What happens is because of our own fault, sometimes we use the marine resources so bad in such a destructive and predatory way that we end up messing with the food chain. And then sharks get very hungry and they need to survive just like we do. And if they are about to die or they have to eat some weird, not tasty thing, they will eat whatever they have available in order to survive. It's the same thing with us. If anybody were to leave us without food for 30 days, and then you see a cockroach or then you see a big bee or a wasp, you would eat that just because you don't want to die, and you were starving to death. So it's the same thing with sharks. We have very rare, seldom cases of shark attacks and shark fatalities all over the world. And if you stop and you think, they are not murders, because if they were to be, these numbers would be huge with the amount of people we have in the water every day, all around the world, swimming at the beaches. On the other hand, we kill 100,000 million sharks per year worldwide just for shark finning. And that makes no sense because we just slaughter them and we throw them bleeding back in the water, and they really drown because sharks, they need their fins to swim, and the only way they can breathe is when they are swimming. The water goes through their gills and they are able to breathe and to oxygenate and get oxygen from the water. So once you slaughter their fins and you throw just their bodies back in the water, they lose their capability of swimming. And then they drown, they just sink, and they cannot breathe anymore. And it's a very slow and very painful death. It's such a coward act from us, and we shouldn't be doing this with 100,000 million sharks per year like we do. So this campaign was exactly to bring people's attention to this atrocity, and to make people think again, are sharks really assassins? Are they really the criminals and the murderers? They're not, because I was there with more than 100 sharks, 25 meters deep, no mask, no things, wearing a dress, a fashion dress, underwater in the middle of dozens of them, and nothing happened, because they were in a very balanced environment. They weren't hungry, and then that proved that human beings are not the source of food for sharks. Because if it was, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
I've seen the pictures, and for those listeners who's not seen the beautiful pictures, and I highly recommend searching for Karina Oliani and I guess mermaid sharks. That should do the Google search easier. Well, how was it to dive around in a mermaid dress with all these sharks 25 meters depth?
Well, I loved it, but then again, I just told you that I grew up swimming in the ocean, and swimming is one of the things I do best. So I felt very comfortable there. But on the other hand, my eyes, because of the salty water and no mask, I couldn't see anything. I could only see the sharks when they were like 2 meters away from me. And sometimes I used to go, oh, this is a big one. And I only saw it when it was like, almost swimming like so close to me. Uh, I really enjoyed doing that. But we were in the water shooting for more than 6 hours. And by the end of the photo shoot, I started to lose lots of body heat and I got a little cold, and I was very tired, But after the next day, when we started to see the first results of the photo shoot, we were so amazed by the results of it. It was so beautiful that it was worthwhile all the sacrifices we made.
They were exquisite photos, unbelievable. Highly recommended. How was this campaign received around the world?
It got this big attention, much bigger than we expected. So we were very happy with all the promotion all over, like Asia, Europe, North America, Africa. We couldn't even believe how many medias all around the world were writing to us and asking for us for these photos and for some content. And of course, we didn't have any intention of making a profit out of it. We just wanted to spread the worlds and save sharks and stop shark finning. So we just gave them all this material, and yeah, we were very happy with all the attention it got.
You say in an interview, quote, "They are not the assassins. We kill 11,000 sharks every hour," and end quote. That's insane. Sharks are extremely important animals. We know that, and they've been around for more than 400 million years. Why do you think still in the 21st century we are so sharkophobic? I have a prospect on this. Is Steven Spielberg's blockbuster Jaws to be blamed, or is there something primeval that arouses us so much when we talk and speak about sharks?
Well, I'm sure this movie plays a part on this, but we cannot only blame the movie. Uh, since the very first existence of the first humanoids, of course, we don't want to have predators. We don't want to be chased around, eaten, or, and since humanity started to control our all nature and to be able to be very safe and don't have to deal different from us, when we go to the mountains, we sometimes see avalanches, we see big rock falls, we fall into crevasses, and we know we cannot control nature. But people that prefer to stick to urban environments and they don't have this connection with nature, they don't like the idea of being threatened by a predator, of having to worry about being eaten when they swim. But again, I have to say that they don't have these statistics if they stop and think about it. Yes, there is a chance, but the chance is so little. Like the chance of dying of anything else, including like getting a lightning in your head or a heart attack or a car running over you or whatever, it's so much bigger. So really, people have to be more conscient about it. They have to think in a more rational way, about why they. You don't need to love sharks like I do. It's not what I'm asking for people. I'm just asking for their respect. Like you said, those animals have been here for 400 million years and they need at least our respect. They have been here much longer than us and they play a very important role when we are talking about food chain balance and the marine environment. And of course, without the ocean, humanity cannot survive. We need the ocean. The ocean is the real lungs of the world when we are talking about oxygen. And we always relied on the ocean to survive, you know. And once the ocean is sick, and an ocean without sharks for sure is a sick ocean, we cannot survive too much longer.
You also swam with great white sharks, and that without safety or safety cage. Now, if I heard this 20 years ago, I would probably call those people daredevils. But as you mentioned, it's key to get educated about these apex predators because that is how we ultimately can protect them. And they've been around longer than we have. How do you know when it's safe to dive with these impressive beasts?
So this dive took place in Guadalupe Island out of the Pacific Mexican coast. And I was there diving with great white sharks, no cage, for 7 days, 3 times per day. And of course, I was already an experienced diver then, and I wouldn't recommend this dive to a person that is beginning because you do need to feel very comfortable in the water. And also, the most important thing is you need to understand sharks. And I did an extensive research before I went to this liveaboard on great white sharks' behavior. And I found out that they give you lots of body signals, body language. They use body language all the time to communicate amongst themselves. And this, if we are to understand this body language, we can also dive safely or swim safely around these animals. Great white sharks, they are very territorial animals, so they protect their territory so much. And once they feel that any other thing or any other possible predator is invading their territory, of course, they are going to fight for it. But before they go and bite you, before they actually have a physical combat with you, they're going to give you some body language that you can easily identify. Like, for example, they start opening and closing their mouths. So they start like doing this movement with their jaws. They start shaking their gills, which shows they are annoyed by your presence. And also, they start swimming in a very different way. If you know how they normally swim, you can tell, oh, this is not the way they usually swim around people. When they are calm, they swim in a very slow manner. They get close to you, but once they get to a certain distance, like 1 or 2 meters from you, they go away. And when they are annoyed, they start swimming very fast and they put their dorsal fins up. So you can see like their fins are in a different position and they start doing more aggressive and more and faster movements, you know. And once you see that, you have to show them you're not trying to compete for territory with them. You have to move away, and then they get calm again, and they understand that you are not there to threaten them.
That is just amazing. There should be a great white shark for dummies guide in every classroom.
Yeah, especially for people who likes to surf or to swim, where we know they are very prevalent. You know, it would be good for people to start understanding those animals because we know animals they have a way to communicate. Most all of them, you know, and all we have to do is try to understand them and to know what their behavior are.
Jumping over to another hair-raising story, you have crossed the so-called Hell's Gate in Ethiopia on a zip line. That was a first, by the way. And the name of the volcano is Erta Ale. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, right.
Which has never fallen asleep. When it was discovered, it lies at the hottest region in the world, and there's a giant lava lake in the middle. And getting close to this place is already an adventure in itself. But you were not finished. You put a zip line across the mouth of the volcano end to end and slide it across. I would say that that is absolutely stupendous. Crazy, might some people say, but wow. Tell me about this.
Frederick, that yes was the first, and I'm talking with GWR, Guinness Book World Record. They're probably gonna recognize this and put that into their book by March 2021. Thank you. And when I did that in 2017, everybody told me it was impossible because, of course, all the lava around Ertaale in the Afar language, the local language means Hell's Gate. And all the lava around the crater it breaks very easy. So you have no safe rigging point. It's very difficult to find like a piece of rock where the rigging will actually stick. So we spent like 4 days at least looking for rigging spots, and we wouldn't find them. And there is considered to be one of the hottest regions on Earth. The temperatures can easily get to 50 Celsius degrees. So, it was like very hot and very tiring, and we were walking all around the crater with that terrible toxic smoke, getting into our eyes and our mucus, and we needed to wear masks to get very close, otherwise we couldn't actually breathe or our nose would start bleeding so bad. But in the end, on the fifth day, we were able to find those rigging spots that we were looking for so bad. And a Canadian friend of mine, also called Frederick, he yeah, so he did my safety and he did all the checking. We did all the rigging together, and then I was able to traverse and to give it a try. And of course, everything went well because we're here talking now too. But that was so intense. It was one of the most spectacular moments of my life. And that.
Did you ever look down? Did you ever look down during this
All the
zip
time.
lining? Or were you too focused holding yourself over?
No, I was looking down all the time, and it was absolutely hard to get the paperwork done because, of course, the government and the people from Ethiopia didn't want any big breaking news like, Brazilian girls die. She fell in the lava in this middle of the lava lake. So they were very concerned about allowing us, to go there and to film all that, to get all that on TV while it was being done live. And it took me a lot of work, office work, paperwork to be able to do that. And when we got there, the region, it's right in the border of Eritrea with Ethiopia. So there's a big political tension going on there, and there's lots like we had a German guy being killed just 2 days after we left, murdered by a lost bullet, So we knew we were in a very dangerous, not only because of actually zip lining over lava lake for the first time, but mainly because of all the political tensions and everybody carrying like these big guns around. And at night we were sleeping by the volcano crater, and we were hearing all these gunshots. It was not fun.
A technical question pops up in my mind. You traversed on a zip line, and I suppose this line in itself must be a very special type of line, not the Indiana Jones from the Temple of Doom where he cuts it and they all fall. We remember that scene. How was your crisis management plan? How does it look like for this kind of an venture? It must have been very rigid.
Yeah, no, as I told you, it took me the planning and all the pre-expedition was way more hard. Like we had to dedicate so much times of our life for this project, Frederick and I. I had to travel to Canada because Frederick's Canadian, and I had to meet him there because we were looking at all the gear that we had to use on such an extreme temperature, and we used the same rope material that firefighters use to get victims out of buildings that are catching on fire in flames. Also, all the metal we used were special metal and brakes on the ropes. And we had to build once we got there, and we realized that the rock was so sharp and so thin, and the rock would break so easy. We had to go after some big wood trunks and build a tripod to elevate the rope out of any rock, and we couldn't use just the rope protectors that we took. We had to do something bigger for making sure the rope was gonna be all the integrity of the rope while it was traversing, and while all this load was on the rope. um, we tested the rope many times with 3 people hanging on it and 3 people that weigh much more. I have more or less 60 kilos, and we put like 180 kilos on the riggings to test them. So we were very happy once we got the riggings done. But yeah, we had to go after a special suit to be able to take 500 Celsius degrees. We had to go after all this special gear. We had to use special masks in order to be able to breathe, because the volcano has these different phases, and when it goes to the lightning phase, it starts like all those lava waves start to hit the wall of the crater, and all this smoke starts to come up. You cannot see anything, and if you don't have like a mask on, you also cannot breathe, because if you breathe, those gases would suffocate you in minutes. So we had to think about all these small details that would be very big if we didn't think them priorly, and it was not easy to put everything together to be able to do that with the safety we did.
You do a lot of programs for television. I'm curious, does this change the level of risk acceptance that you allow yourself?
Not at all. I think this is me. I would do that with television or without television. And thanks God, I was always able to have to myself that if I didn't have a good gut feeling about something, or if I had this premonition, or like when you sometimes there's just that voice telling you, don't do this, today is not the day, don't do this now. I was always able to listen to that, and doesn't matter if the camera is on, if the camera is off. I have to respect that on top of everything and go with my gut feeling.
If you could pick one of the following, which one would you choose? Close encounter with death or close encounter with life experiences?
Of course, close encounter with life experiences. And what some people consider to be a close encounter with death, sometimes it's wrong, because we planned so much, we studied so much, we tested things so extensively that the risk is not that big. It might look huge to a person that has no idea all the work we did previously, but for us, the risk is acceptable, because we dedicated so much, we studied so much, we did so many tests. So yeah, as a mountaineer, and you've been to many mountains, you know that the risk is there, but we never feel so alive when we are climbing. And this makes our life so special because we do what we love.
I think George Lee Mallory, you remember that historical mountaineer from Great Britain, he said, quote, "The biggest danger is not to take the adventure itself." How does that resound?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with him.
Are you ever afraid?
Of course I am. Fear is this very primitive, very common feeling in all human beings. But I think the way I deal with fear is slightly different from most of people, because usually, since I'm a little kid, I like to put myself in fearful situations. I like to be out of my comfort zone. And because of that, I've learned how to deal with it in a very different way. I feel fear just like anybody else, but I'm able to control it better and to make it put me into the right direction. And sometimes the right direction is to give a step back, but mainly like 80-90% of the times, the right direction is to throw yourself and do it, and this is usually how I react to fear.
Speaking about which, and fear, another mind-wrenching encounter that you experienced with an animal kingdom was when you got close to jaws of biggest anaconda ever caught on camera, and those pictures are just surreal. Um, Here you even admitted that you were terrified as you came across a modern day sea monster. You teamed up with extreme sport photographer Alexandra Sochi, and you guys had searched far and wide for 4 days before coming across this massive snake in an underwater cave. You say that it has always been a dream of yours to find an anaconda. Perhaps not the most prevalent dream of every child in the world, but how was it like to sneak up to this 400 kilograms reptile?
At first, as you said, and I said previously, it was very scary because, well, I have met many anacondas in my life, being born here in Brazil and putting myself into wilderness environments very often. But I never saw an anaconda that huge. It was like something between 7 to 8 meter long, a female, because females in snake anacondas, they are much bigger than males. And when she started swimming and entering the water, she was so heavy and so huge that all this mud, like just all this suspension in the water, you couldn't see anything. It all became a brown cloud. And I saw myself swimming in the middle of this brown cloud. And I knew this huge anaconda was right there, but I didn't know from where it was coming. And all of a sudden, the water got a little clear and a little space. And when I saw the space, I saw like this snake, huge piece of snake going right in front of my eyes, like 20 centimeters away only. So she was so close to me, and I had no idea how close she was to me. And my heart was like, so accelerated. I had all this tachycardia, and all of a sudden, the currents cleared the water, and the water was very clear. It's in a place that's a very special place where the river has a crystal clear water. And when I was able to look at the anaconda and to see how she was swimming and where she was exactly, then everything started to calm down and my heart was slowing down. And I saw how gentle she was. And she wasn't even interested in us. She just wanted to go back to surface to breathe, because they need to breathe every 8 or 15 minutes. They submerge, they swim a little bit, and they go to the surface to get oxygen. And I was just there staring at her, and she went to the surface, she got oxygen, and then she went back down and started swimming very slow and very gently again. And I was following her for 90 minutes. So I was for a long time in the water with this huge anaconda that people say this huge monster. But then I'm like, there's nothing monsterly to it. It's such a gentle giant. It's and she clearly had no interest in us. She was never like coming to us or swimming through us. She was always trying to swim away from us, actually. So we just gave her that space we felt she needed, and then she was fine around us for more than an hour.
I've been diving, but Not quite such. I'm stunned. I'm breathless. You do so many inspiring things, but who has served you as an inspiration?
Oh, there are so many people that has inspired me through my life and throughout all these sports I've adventured myself to, because I've gone from board sports to like from skiing to mountaineering to diving to whitewater kayaking. So I really like to be out of my comfort zone. When something starts to get too familiar for me, I just go out and reach out and try some other different thing. And I love not being a specialist. I love having the chance of being different environments, meeting different people, being part of different sports tribes all the time. And this makes me want to wake up so early every morning and just leave. It's something I really love to do. But I think my father was, I can say my father was the biggest inspiration ever throughout my entire life, not only for a part of it, because of his integrity, because of his honesty, because of his values, because of how he treats people. He's always kind to everybody. Um, he's a very straight man, and well, I just think he's my biggest inspiration.
Our environment is changing for the worse. And you've been confronting the environment for many, many expeditions now, and you probably seen a lot of changes. But what are some of the most significant changes you've seen in the environment in your past 50 expeditions?
Wow, Frederick, for sure is climate change and how the ocean levels are rising. Uh, as I told you, I was very much an ocean beach person, and there are places I visit for more than 30 years now. And I can clearly see how much the ocean has advanced and taken, uh, yeah, not only like talking about beaches, but also glaciers. When I went to Everest for the first time, 2009, and when I last went to Nepal, we took the same photo of the same glacier and it shrank so much. Um, yeah, it's very frustrating how some people still want to believe there's no effect of human action in climate change, but that's not the truth. And if they go and they research and they look for scientific facts, they are going to see that yes, we're causing a big impact to climate change worldwide. And that's very urgent. We need to start doing something about it.
You've conducted survival exercises with some special ops from Brazil in the Amazon. And people, this probably won't come as a surprise, but every year, 20,000 square miles of rainforest is cut clear. And that's about 3 football fields every single minute. If nothing is done to curb this trend, the entire Amazon could be gone within 50 years. That's within our lifespan. What I'm curious about, and which we cannot access perhaps in the same way as you can, does Brazilians understand the severity of the problem, and what are some of the domestic counterforces current to remedy the problem?
I unfortunately don't have the answer to that. Human greed is endless, and they always find ways around to fulfill their pockets and to get richer and richer. And sometimes they don't even know why they want more money for it, because within like 10 lifetimes, they cannot spend all the money they have in their bank accounts. So it's just so frustrating. And I was in the Amazon for 3 months this year, and I had the opportunity of flying drones where I was. And yeah, you see like how much all this farming and it's majorly farming. Amazon is being devastated because farmers wants to feed their cattle. And this is just such an ignorant way of substituting the biggest biodiversity on Earth and the largest rainforest on our planet. But I don't know how to stop it. I don't think anybody knows actually. And we're looking at this catastrophe in front of our eyes, and there's not much we can do. No matter how much you talk about it, no matter how much you scream, no matter like you go, you talk to people, but I don't know. I don't know how to stop it. And if anybody does, it would be good to get some professional help.
Does Brazilian have these forces domestically? Were they trying to protect forests by purchasing land and preserve them as they are? Is that some?
No, unfortunately, we don't have that. And yeah, like I believe, Frederick, this helps, and these NGOs, yes, they do an amazing work and they try their best to change that, but without actually changing the national law, Brazilian laws. And not only Brazil, because the Amazon is also in Bolivia, in Peru, in many other countries here in South America. If you don't change the laws, it's very hard to change this reality. I recently watched A Life on Our Planet. It's a movie of David Attenborough, and he was discussing with all the experience he has over a century dedicating his life to wildlife preservation and going around the world and seeing all the changes and how humanity is dealing with nature for the last century. He gave many good ideas of how we can still recover and how we can still stop all this massive nature destruction that human beings are doing on Earth. But if we don't do this worldwide, and if we don't change the laws worldwide, this is not going to stop. It's very bad in Asia with Borneo, with all the rainforests we have over there. It was very bad once in Europe. It was crazily devastating in North America. Now it's happening in Brazil. So when the story is going to change, when these human patterns of destroying and just building lots of things to get more and more what they call development will actually stop, and I just believe that's going to stop when we change our rules and we have very strict laws about destroying and taking rainforests.
I consent, and it's an imperative question, and it needs to be. It needs a remedy. It needs attention, and it needs a quick fix. I totally agree. I've been to the Amazon once, and we are at the brink of not only losing our dignity by pursuing on these atrocities, but also the foundation for life. So with that, maybe we jump over also being mindful about your time to from jungles to towering giants in Pakistan. And for more than 4 years now, you've been trying to realize your dream of climbing K2. And then finally in 2019, that was realized. The first year you could not do it because of work commitments. Then the following year, you lacked the sponsorship. And the third time, I think, then you got bit by a nasty tick and got terribly ill. And finally, in 2019, you got your pieces together and it came through. How was it like?
Well, I got Lyme disease, which is a bacteria, Borrelia, a really nasty one that can go through your nervous system, and it did in me. And I had to take very strong IV medications for months and months to be able to get rid of it. And You never really know if you absolutely get rid of it, actually, but my symptoms are very mild now, and I'm able to control it with over the counter medication. And I was able to go back to climbing. So the first big expedition I did after Lyme disease was K2. By the time I traveled to Pakistan, I didn't know if I was going to able to stand such an extreme physical expedition, but I was very happy I was able to complete it. And I still need to keep my immunity very high, because when I feel like my immunity is going down, I start to get the symptoms back. um, I think that's part of the previous problem we were talking about. When humans start invading and taking so much wild territory, all these diseases starts coming to us, because we are just taking away the territory of wild animals. We were not supposed to do that. We were supposed to be sharing this planet in a friendly way with all the other species, since we consider ourselves intelligent and clever people. But really, I think we are the most dumb species ever, because we are the species that destroy the most our own planet. And when it finishes, what are we going to do? How can we be so intelligent and so clever and not think about that?
Now, from a medical point of view, from a doctor point of view, how healthy is it really to climb 8,000 meters for our bodies?
Well, I have mixed feelings about that. Since you were asking how a doctor's point of view feels about like climbing an 8,000 meter, then I have to say technically it's not healthy for you at all. When hypoxia is not a good state for your body to be anytime. We are supposed to live with plenty of oxygen, with enough oxygen to maintain life. But it's very different if you decide to go on such a climb using supplementary oxygen or not. And as a doctor, I love to climb mountains. This is a big thing for me, but I'm not a professional mountaineer. And I haven't dedicated my life to mountains. So, as a doctor, I always choose to go on my expeditions with supplementary oxygen, because I want to enjoy, because I want to be able to look at the landscape. I want to be able to feel pleasure when I'm climbing, and not only pain, and not only like I see people climbing without oxygen, and lots of them are very, very strong climbers, but when they go to summit push on an 8,000 meter without oxygen, you see on their faces all that struggle and how much their organisms are in pain, all the sacrifice their body is doing in order for them to be able to climb. But then again, I have friends that have dedicated their entire life for mountaineering, and I can understand why they choose to do so, why they want such a challenge. And who am I to judge that? But as a doctor, if they ask me, I tell everyone, go to an 8,000 meter with oxygen. Keep your brain healthy. Keep all your neurons, because you're going to need them when you're older, and how you grew older.
Wise words. How was the summit date on K2?
Summit day was amazing. It was very cold, of course, especially for a Brazilian girl. But yeah, we had some verglass, like that. It was hard to climb, very slippery. But as you know, we had a first summit attempt, and then this huge avalanche came, vanished the two ropes before summit, and everybody had to go down. So I was already in the middle of my summit push, first one in July 19, when I met some people coming back from summit saying, oh no, this huge avalanche and two ropes were swept away and we have to go down. So we came down from camp for all the way to base camp, and we didn't know if we were going to have a second chance to do the summit push or not. But then Nims Dai with his Team Impossible, his project, he came to base camp on that time, and he was very acclimatized coming from other mountains, and he came with lots of Sherpa power, very strong Sherpa experienced climbers, and they went one day before us to summit push. They fixed the two ropes that were vanished again, and then we were able, on July 25th, we were able to do our try and to do our summit push successfully. And I was very grateful because we had it, then we didn't have it, and we didn't know if we were going to have a second chance. And then all of a sudden, everything happened. And out of 120 climbers that were there, more or less 120 climbers that were there that season, only 20 approximately were able to go to the summit. So I was very grateful. I was one of those people after everything, after trying to get financial help, support, and it was not like I was able to get all this money and just pay for my climb. I had to get sponsors in Brazil, and Brazil has a very weak currency. So when we talk about an 8,000, we know it's a very expensive mountain, and you have to pay in US dollars in euro. And when we convert to our currency, is a small fortune, So it's never easy for me as a Brazilian to pull out these expeditions and these big things I like to do. It's always a little harder than everybody else because of this money thing too.
Congratulations for summiting.
Thank you so much. And I wish we can meet each other again on some other 8,000er soon.
I would love that. I'm deeply missing Nepal. I'm very much longing coming back to Nepal. It's such a special place for me. It has always a very special place in my heart. And I haven't been to Brazil yet. So perhaps when COVID is a long forgotten memory, hopefully, I'll come and visit you guys. And I'd like to see the jungles. But speaking of jungles, we're gonna round off by going back to the jungles. And I would like to pivot back to Akakor and the Facebook TV series Curse of the Akakor. It's a lost city. And the name of the mythological ancient underground city, it's located somewhere between Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru, allegedly. And it was described by German journalist Karl Brugger based on interviews with a self-proclaimed Brazilian Indian chieftain, Tatakan Nara. I'm not sure if I can pronounce that name properly. Tatunaka Nara, I think. Yeah, exactly. And he mentioned that in his book, The Chronicle of Akakor. What I'm wondering here is, all this talk about Akakor, are we talking about El Dorado, the lost city of El Dorado? Is it the same thing, Akakor and El Dorado?
Well, they're both myths, right? But no, Akakor, it's they believe it's a city made of gold in this same region, but I think we are talking about different stories, different myths.
How did Facebook get so interested in this story in the beginning?
Well, Akakor, El Dorado, Paitiri, they are all these very well-known myths worldwide, and there was always this Indiana Jones kind of adventure books around all those myths. And 3 or 4 decades ago, Tatun Kanara, he's not an Indian. He's more like a person who needs mental help. He still lives in Brazil. And, so many people in the city where he lives just say he was responsible for murdering some people that he took into to the middle of the jungle to find Akakor. But when the people started asking him, "Hey, you got all this money from me, and you asked for all this fortune because we were going to the jungle to find Akakor," and they started to get mad because they were never able to find Akakor actually. So supposedly, this is what happened. He just killed these people because he didn't want these people to go on the media and to say, "Hey, Akakor doesn't exist." So there's at least four people that never returned. One is from Sweden, the other one was American, and yeah, they're like, if you watch the series, you're gonna be able to see one of the person who lost their life sister talking about how it was and telling from her point of view the story. But Tatunkanara, he could never be an Indian because he speaks no language of no Indians, no any tribe that are there in Brazil or Peru or Bolivia, and he can hardly speak, like, he can speak Portuguese, but for a Portuguese first language person like me, I can absolutely tell you he's from Germany. His first language is German. And then all this research we've done in this series, it took us back to German records. And this guy was in the army once and he had a past in Germany. And we found photos and his name and everything. And he keeps telling us this story that he's born in the middle of the Amazon, that his dad is an Indian. But when you go there and you see for yourself, like I did, you can tell it's like this big fake story that he created to attract people to the Akakor and to get money out of them. And it's a very weird story. It's definitely one of the stories that people should be making series and movies about, because it's very
enchanting.
weird and very interesting.
Which leads me to a kind of a conclusion about, we talked about environmental protection and preservation, etc. Perhaps there should be some kind of mythological preservation as well. Maybe some myths should just remain being myths and linger and tease our fantasies, because in a world where pretty much everything is nailed down to scientifics and bits and pieces to zero and digits, we know everything, or at least a lot. Perhaps some fantasies and we should leave something for the imagination. Do you agree?
Well, yeah, of course. We all need good stories and books to read, but what is not very cool to me, especially in this Akakor thing, is it was kind of dangerous being the Amazon and looking for the truth for all the team that was there. And I don't mean only this adventure jungle dangerous, because I like that. I mean the other, we had an FBI agent with us, and we had to use policeman help, and we were escorted at some times. So it was dangerous, like truly dangerous. It was the first time I had to go undercover. It was the first time I saw myself as an undercover agent, because I was the only person speaking Portuguese, and I needed to speak Portuguese to some people to find out the truth, And yeah, I absolutely recommend everybody that is listening to us and it's already curious to know more about it, just go to Facebook Watch on Facebook and type Curse of Akakor. And it's only 10 episodes. They are very short, nice and short, and you are going to want to watch one after the other and after the other.
I concur. It was very addicting, very addictive.
Nice.
Karina, if we haven't scared away all our listeners and somehow, perhaps even also, which I have been inspired, if people out there want to combine their medical professions with an adventurous journey, what is your recommendation for realizing this dream?
Well, I tell them not to worry about getting, like, to be a wilderness doctor. Let me rephrase that. It's because it's not going to give you money, it's not going to give you big paychecks in the end of the day. But so for who wants to become a wilderness doctor and to combine their passion for nature with their profession, they need to stick to their regular jobs, but then go to medical congress, try to do special courses, and go after every time they can, every time they get a chance, to specialize in wilderness medicine. It's very hard to just survive and rely financially on that. But after you start making a name in this environment, you can get enough recognition to be able to do only that. But it takes a while. It doesn't come like at first.
Do you have any new expeditions in the pipeline?
Well, I do, but this pandemic is always like kind of breaking our legs. I had a plan to go to Nepal in March, April, and May, and I still don't know if that's going to be able or not. But I hope yes, because the vaccination campaign started already here in Brazil. And hopefully we'll have time until April to get everybody vaccinated and be able to travel safely.
If you could relive one moment in your life, only one, which moment would that be?
Tomorrow. I think we always have the chance of pulling out a dream and living something amazing that we never lived and that we can still live, no matter our age.
So the answer to the question is not reliving a day in your life, but living your next day.
Exactly. The time I look most forward to living is the next day. I think we need to stop being so anxious. I heard a phrase that was saying excess of past causes anxiety. Excess of future, I'll rephrase that. The excess of past causes depression. The excess of future causes anxiety. We need to be in the present. We need to be looking forward to living right now,
Or as Disney put it once, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's why they call it present.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that quote.
Any last words you want to share with us?
No, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thanks for everybody who is listening to us. If they want to follow some more of my work, at Karina with K, Oliani, Oliani, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other social media. And it was such a pleasure to have this nice conversation with you.
Thank you. I hear you getting ready for dinner. What's for dinner?
I'm not sure. Some salad, some omelette. I'm not exactly sure.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast, Karina. Thank you earnestly for your time and contribution. If people want to find out more about you, where should they turn to?
I think like Instagram, Facebook, or my website, which is www.karinaoliani.com.br.
Thank you very much.